ANC leaders set to appear before the Integrity Commission. Is this spelling a leadership crisis within the ruling party, and what does this mean for the nation? Political Analyst Friedman joins us now for this discussion. Prof, good evening, and thank you very much for your time tonight. So we've got the SG definitely confirming that he got the letter from the Integrity Commission of the ANC to come and appear there. And then President Cyril Ramaphosa, others saying because he has been under immense pressure at this NEC meeting taking place this weekend, with his detractors coming in guns blazing, some calling for him to step down. We've seen the festival of open letters on the build-up to it. One even coming from former President Jacob Zuma saying, well, you are actually throwing the whole party under the bus, criticizing his claim that ANC is accused #1 when it comes to corruption. What do you make, firstly, of the move by President Cyril Ramaphosa as he was giving his political overview to almost preempt what was coming and say, I will go and present myself to the Integrity Commission?
Well, Thabo, good evening and thank you. Look, as a move within ANC politics, it makes a lot of sense because he's saying, look, I'm saying I don't have anything to hide. Do you have anything to hide? Which is, in the circumstances, probably the most effective way of dealing with it. But from the perspective of the rest of us, from the people of South Africa, I think it really depends very much on whether this process is going to be public or not, and whether the details are going to be public or not. We do need to know who funds political campaigns, and I agree with your caller that we need to know it from everybody, not just from Ramaphosa. But it could be a big breakthrough if he does go there, and the result of it is that we do know who is funding political campaigns. But that's not necessarily the case. You know, if Magashule goes there, we may not know what happens. So if this is simply going to be a situation in which the Secretary General and the President are going to go to a committee and have a behind closed doors discussion, and the committee will issue some sort of bland statement afterwards, well then obviously that's not taking things very much forward at all. If this leads to a situation where information which has been kept from the public for the last 25 years is now out in the public space, then obviously we've made some progress here.
Where does this then put the nation, the ANC, as a leader of society? That's what they call themselves. Who has then the moral compass to lead the fight against corruption if the party itself is not in agreement on the processes and tools that should be followed to root out corruption within the party itself?
Well, I think there are two answers to that, Thabo. I mean, the first one is just the broad answer, and we're seeing this play out at the moment. The only effective tool we have against corruption is the people of South Africa. It's only if you have public pressure that something is done about corruption. And we're seeing this playing out at the moment because everything we're seeing at the moment is a consequence of the public anger over the revelations about PPE and about food parcels, etc., which incidentally was itself the result of factional politics in the ANC, which is a nice irony about this situation. But that's the first point. It's only when public pressure builds that things are done. And I think that we may be in a situation at the moment where a combination of that factional politics and the public pressure actually will make for some progress. But on the more basic level, I think it is important to say that I think there has been the beginnings of progress in dealing with corruption at the government level. So in other words, we have had steps taken, and I think we will have more steps taken, which will mean that the government will do more to fight corruption. The situation in the ANC is quite the opposite. The situation in the ANC is one in which I'm very skeptical that anything is going to be done to fix up corruption within the ANC. So that means we always have to distinguish between what's going on within the ANC and what's going on in the country. If the result of all this is that we get tougher anti-corruption measures, that we get more muscle and more teeth to the public attempts to deal with corruption through government, then that will be a step forward. The ANC's problem is the ANC's problem. People must decide whether they want to vote for a party with those sorts of problems at the moment.
The Radical Economic Transformation grouping of Gauteng wants us to believe that the COVID-19 corruption is the final nail in the head that got society so fed up and tired of the corruption within the ANC. Do you share that sentiment?
Well, I think it certainly has tipped a scale. We must be very careful here, Thabo, because, you know, at the moment we do not know. I mean, the reality in South Africa is that those of us who participate in discussions like the one we're having this evening, and those of us who phone into TV channels, and those of us who go on social media, are about 20% of the population. So we really don't know what the other 80% think. And the reason we don't know what they think is that we haven't had a by-election since the lockdown. You can't believe any of the polls at the moment because they're online polls, so they don't speak to people in shack settlements and townships who are not online. So we don't know what the majority feel. But certainly among those people who tend to drive the debate, the people who do participate in social media, etc., clearly the level of anger at the revelations about COVID-related corruption, I think, did take things onto a different level, and I think that's why we're seeing the sort of reaction. As I say, we must always, you know, very often in this situation we can become victims as citizens of internal politics. There is huge internal politics going into this. What we used to call the Zuma faction is very excited about the fact that the people involved in the PPE scandal are close to the president rather than close to them, and they're milking that for all they're worth, and that's causing the other side to say, well, then you've got to reveal what you're doing. All of that is positive for us as citizens. But how far it's going to go will depend on how the public pressure is kept up. And as I say, I think that there's a different set of dynamics going on within the ANC rather than what we're seeing out, with beefing up the corruption fighting capacities within government.
The issue of the unsealing of the bank statements, is that going to be really the bottleneck that eventually gets President Cyril Ramaphosa off the chair of presidency in this country?
No, it won't. I mean, I can tell you it won't now. And the reason I can tell you it won't is that there are no laws in this country which prohibit, doesn't matter who you got your funding from, maybe if you can prove, and that would be a legal matter, but I'm sure that he wouldn't be as willing to go before the Integrity Committee as he is if that were the case. If you could show that so-and-so gave him money and was then appointed to a position, that would enhance the political pressure. But part of our problem at the moment is that we don't have laws to deal with this. I mean, both him and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma should have been compelled by law to make it clear where they get their money from, who is funding them. And it's not an invasion of privacy because these are public figures. They're responsible to the voters. If you don't want that kind of scrutiny, don't go into public life. But until we have laws in place which deal with this, it's very unlikely that it will have that consequence. And I think you've got to remember, at the end of the day, whatever consequence it has for us as South Africans, this is a factional battle within the governing party. It will be settled by which side has the most votes in the National Executive Committee, and it'll probably really only be settled by which side has most votes at the next ANC conference. Because remember also that even if the majority of the NEC wants to get rid of Mr. Ramaphosa, which seems to me unlikely, all they can do is to say, please go, because there's nothing in the ANC constitution which gives the NEC the power to remove an ANC president.